Everyone, and welcome to the June 12th, 2025 work session of the Clarksville City Council for the fiscal year 2026 budget. Madam Clerk, we're going to take the roll just for the record, even though this is a work session and not a regular meeting or voting meeting. So, Madam Clerk, get us on the board and please register your attendance. Madam Clerk, take the roll, please.
All members are present with the exceptions of Mr. Chandler, Ms. Smith, and Mr. Shekino.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Ladies and gentlemen, before we get started, our Fort Campbell family suffered a tragedy overnight. We lost one soldier and another soldier was injured. There is danger inherent in what they do every single day for us in defense of our ability to gather. So, ladies and gentlemen, I'll ask you to please stand for a moment of silence as we remember the family of the one who's lost and the injured soldier's family and pray for his healing. A moment of silence, please. Amen. Thank you. Today's workshop has, for the past 5 or so years, been an opportunity for members of the council to receive a presentation from Lori Matta, now our former Chief Financial Officer, about the budget process and how we arrived at our revenue projections as well as our expense requests. I'll ask the council to hold your questions until the end of the presentation. You've got a hard copy in front of you and on your iPads. The main point of today's workshop is to provide you, the council, with a complete picture of how we tie every line item to the operations of each department. We recognize there are some concerns about the budget in front of you, but I'll tell you there's no waste, there's no fat, or whatever the current term du jour is these days by the critics. This is a budget that addresses our collective priorities for a growing city. We look forward to a productive conversation at the conclusion of Ms. Matta's presentation. And without further ado, Ms. Matta, welcome back, and you are recognized.
Thank you. Okay. So, as the mayor mentioned, I'm the former chief financial officer. I'm back just for you all. This is my favorite time of year. I think you all know that. I've gone over it before. So today is the kickoff of the budget workshop and the budget season. First reading is next week, which I'll be here for that as well. The budget summary was published in the local newspaper on June 5th, as is required by state law and our charter. For some of you, what I'm going to go over might be a big repeat because we've gone over this for many years, but I think it's so important because this is the most important job that the city council has, is to pass a budget so that we can move our city forward in the coming year. Okay, so a little brief overview of what our budget process is. We start in mid-February with our 5-year capital improvement program, which you're going to be reviewing and accepting on the first budget meeting on June 17th. The RPC will present that. But this is where all the departments will provide us with their planned projects to address the needs in the coming years over the next 5 years. And then in mid-March, we really get into high gear, prepping our annual operating budgets. All requests have to be in our system, our ERP system, by the beginning of April, that's when finance really starts working with the mayor to prioritize the needs and balance the budget. In May, departments present their budgets to the standing council committees. Once we're balanced, the budget must be posted in the newspaper at least 10 days before the first reading in order for it to be held on June 17th, with the second reading scheduled for June 24th. We are required to have a budget passed by June 30th in order to continue normal operations. Our budget is comprised of 14 governmental funds, 7 enterprise funds, and 4 internal service funds. The general fund is the main operating account of the primary government, and we have 19 departments. The general fund also provides support to many other entities and governmental funds, with the largest transfer being to our debt service fund. As we prepare our FY26 budget, we amend our prior year budget at the same time. This is done so that it allows us to fine-tune our current budget projections and update the proposed ending fund balance. At the same time you're going to be approving the 26, you're actually going to be also approving an amended FY25. This is also required by our charter and by the State Comptroller's Office to have the amended budget at the same time. A quick summary of the changes to our FY25 budget amended. Our beginning fund balance was updated based on our external audit, which ended in an increase of nearly $2.1 million from where we thought we would start. As we've been talking about recently, some of our revenues have been coming in a little bit flat, so we've had to decrease in some areas, specifically in licenses and permits. This is mostly due to building permits that we overly estimated for the first year with the new rates, and also investment income. We projected that based on what the trend had been, and it's really decreased significantly due to the uncertainty in the market since January 1st. While there's many various ups and downs in our revenue projections, the net effect was only $546,000. General fund departments decreased their budgets by $2.3 million. Most of that was due to the inability to fill positions and multiple turnover. There was almost over $3 million of reductions in salaries and benefits. Other expenses of the general fund that changed. So our county share of liquor by the drink, we increased that by $35,000. State law requires us to pay 50% of what we receive to the county. Regardless of what we've appropriated, we have to pay it over. Other funded entities, Arts and Heritage and the Roxy, were removed from our general fund budget, and that was because of the Act Authority. When the Act Authority was created and you all passed that ordinance, you dedicated the hotel motel tax to funding them. So we had to set up a fund for them, and those entities transferred over to that fund. They're going to be paid out of the hotel motel tax, so it won't be in the general fund anymore. Also, the transfer to the Act Authority, I increased that based on actual projections. In the beginning, we thought maybe $200,000 we would get in the first couple of months. We've gotten almost $500,000. So, and we're required by that ordinance that passed the hotel motel tax, we have to transfer all of that to the Act Authority. So I've increased that by $500,000. We also had to increase our transfer to our debt service fund by $210,000 to cover increase in our interest rates because of our variable rate debt. We have one small variable rate debt left. We're actually looking at doing a refunding on that to get in on fixed rates, and we'd have a significant savings if we were able to do that. There'll probably be more on that coming after the budget. In total, the general fund FY25 budget decreased from the original budget by $2.4 million. With these changes, our ending fund balance is slated to increase by nearly $4.2 million, using only $2.6 million of the fund balance for one-time expenses instead of $4.7 that was originally budgeted. So that helps us with our FY26. Then we get to our fund balance. I want to explain what it is and what it isn't. So fund balance is not just a savings account. Fund balance is for the general government that we need to use for non-recurring expenses. We don't ever want to use fund balance for recurring expenses. So not like for salaries, but we can do it for one-time expenses. What our fund balance truly is, it's a tried and tested policy to maintain 20% of our general fund expenditures to ensure we have funds available should there be an emergency that we need to respond to. This policy has been tested through a 100-year flood, through the devastating downtown tornado, through ice storms, the pandemic, and most recently the tornadoes and flooding that have plagued our city. It is available for continuity of operations, and it's available to mitigate against risks of major events. We've been asked several times about reducing our fund balance, but best practices cited by GFOA, which is the Government Financial Officers Association, is 3 months of operating expenditures, or 20% is the best practice. 3 months is $42.5 million, and 20% is $34 million. So the 34 million is about the same number that we've had for many years, and it has held the test of time with that. I'm not comfortable with increasing that amount that we hold because I don't feel it's appropriate to hold too much of taxpayer dollars. So the risk of reducing our policy, it could cause our credit ratings to decrease and could cost us more money when we go to market because our credit rating has a lot to do with our budgeting practices, our fund balance reserves, all of those things, our ability to control expenses comes into play. The stronger fund balance policy we have, the better we look in those markets. So managing our fund balance is a delicate balancing act. We don't want to have it too high. We don't want to have it too low. We need to be able to respond to the emergencies that impact our citizens like we have. So the starting point for our budget prep, and this would be in a perfect world, we would first start in preparing a budget is to get the newly updated ending fund balance, which you'll see on the screen. We set aside 20% for the fund balance requirement and then see what's available for one-time expenses. And then we add projected revenues that we have for the coming year, and then we try and balance to that to cover all of our expenses. In this example, it's after a tax rate increase on the top, and then the bottom part of the screen shows prior to the tax rate increase calculation. So without the tax rate increase, we would have only had $162.4 million available for the budget. And it leaves us with a shortfall of nearly $8 million with no room for emerging needs. So benefits is next. Previously, we've had to make some changes to our health plan to make it more sustainable. Those changes helped, but we still needed to get our funding rates in line. Since we created the self-insurance program, we've been quite successful in controlling the costs and controlling our premiums that the employees pay. For several years, the city was able to absorb the increased cost and not pass any increase on to the employees. In 2024, for the first time since 2017, that we had to pass on some of the increased cost to our employees. In 2025, we had to pass on another small percentage increase to the employees. With the city absorbing 7.5% of the rate increase, we only passed on 5% to the employees. Unfortunately, we had to make that tough decision again this year. We worked really hard to minimize the impact to our employees, with the final adopted plan being to increase the city's contribution of health and pharmacy by 10%, starting in July. And then that makes the city pay an extra $117 a month for each employee. We also had to increase the on-site clinic fee that's available for all employees and family members on our insurance to additional $10 a month. But we decided that we weren't going to pass on any cost of that clinic to the employees anymore. I think it was last year we added a $5 fee for using the clinic once a month. We took that fee away. The city will once again absorb 100% of the on-site clinic costs for the employees. In total, the city pays $1,379 a month for each employee for health, pharmacy, and on-site clinic. The increase to our employees' contribution takes effect January 1st, 2026, and it's only 5%, which equates to between $2 and $12 a month, depending on which plan the employee is enrolled in. That's a per paycheck increase between $1 and $6. Again, for the big picture view, I want to point out that the city pays $1,379 for each employee on our insurance plan, and depending on what plan the employee opts for, the share of the cost of their health insurance ranges from 9% to 21%. So pay and benefits. The city continues to be on what the state calls the TCRS, Tennessee Consolidated Retirement System Legacy Plan, which is a defined benefit plan. The city pays the majority of the costs for the employees. Those hired prior to July 1st, 2023, the city pays 100% into the pension plan for them. For employees hired after July 1st, 2023, the employee shares in the cost of their retirement with a 5% contribution, and the city picks up the balance of that regardless of how much it is. Annually, the state has an actuarial valuation performed on the retirement plan and determines how much each entity has to pay into the fund in order to pay for our retirees. This year, that rate did not change. It is the same rate as last year. We're fortunate in that our plan is quite large because we have a large pool of employees, so our rate tends to not fluctuate as much as some of the smaller entities. So working with the HR director and the mayor, a 2.5% general wage increase was recommended and included in this budget. All non-probationary employees and those who receive at least meets expectations on their annual evaluation will receive a maximum of 2.5% pay increase effective June 28th. I know that date sounds really strange considering our budget technically is effective July 1st, but 40% of our citywide employees are in alternate work schedules. Fair Labor Standards Act provides an exemption for those working in law enforcement and fire protection. It provides for work periods that extend over 27 to 28 days before overtime accrues. Our police department is on 28 days and our fire department is on 27 days. So because these alternate work schedules, if we didn't backdate the general wage increase to June 28th, we would have had to delay the pay increase to July 26th so that employees have the same pay rate for the entire pay period, because it gets quite complicated with overtime when the rate changes in the middle of a pay cycle. With the pay increase and an increase in the cost of health care, we have put together a pay and benefit calculator on our website for the employees. So here's an example. This calculator is, and I'll show you on the next slide how they can access it. But just I wanted to show you the average employee and the impact to them. So the average paid employee on an hourly base gets $28.70 an hour. With 2080 hours, that means they make $59,696 a year. If they picked family coverage with biweekly pay period and an insurance increase of $6, then their pay would increase $114, making the gross pay increase still $108. So it's not a one-to-one. We wanted to make sure that we weren't taking it away with the health care increase. We also did the average with our lowest paid city employee, which makes $15.63 an hour. And typically those level employees don't have family coverage. Typically they would have employee-only coverage, so I use that as the example. So for that one, their annual pay would be $32,510. With the insurance increase, it would increase a whole $1 on that side per pay period, so they would still receive an additional $62.52 per pay period. So here's how they could access that calculator. It's on our website. If you go to the Departments tab under Finance and Revenue, you'll see it on the left side. It's the Employee Impact Calculator for FY26, and they can just key in just their hourly rate of pay and which type of insurance coverage they have, and the math will happen for them. So you received your budget books in the beginning of May. And there might be some changes, so we handed you out a list of what may have changed since your budget books were printed. We did find an error that was made in the finance department, and it was made in the parks budget. We had a number backwards, the sign backwards. It was to reduce for turnover. We also received notice from HUD about additional funding that they were going to receive for the Community Development Fund. So we adjusted that. We also delayed a few new hires to later in the year to match when the need would actually arise. And then the senior center was increased by $19,000 because they started serving their dinner program and they had an error in their math for the coming year. I also received notice that the mayor's salary would be slightly reduced from what we had budgeted. By city code, the mayor's salary is required to match the county mayor's salary. And then your pay, the council's pay, is based on 1/12 of the mayor's salary. So when his salary changed, it had a trickle-down effect. It also impacted the legislative department. Then the total reductions from your books to what you will be voting on Tuesday is $607,000. $607,201. The budget ordinances were emailed to you on May 30th or by May 30th. That's what you're going to be voting on the agenda. The capital projects are within the ordinance as well. You will also have in the agenda the 5-year capital improvement program that the RPC will be presenting. Again, you're not approving the CIP, you're just accepting the CIP. And that's just knowing that the departments are looking at the future and they're saying, this is what we think we're going to need in the next 5 years, and we're bringing it to your attention so you're not surprised next year when we bring something else forward. So as plans change, we modify the 5-year CIP. So you see it each year. It's going to be slightly different than the year before. We only bring forward the current year of the CIP that into the budget documents. So that is in your budget. The citywide estimate for the entire city of all funds totals $950.2 million for FY26. So this is a picture of the entire city budget. This includes all funds, enterprise and governmental funds. The piece of the pie that's on the left side of the circle, so it's about 50% of the circle, is all of our enterprise funds. That's $427 million of the citywide budget. The pie pieces pulled out to the bottom right there, those pie pieces make up 21%, and that's the general government. And that 21% pays for all governmental operations. That's like public safety, streets, parks, and the support departments like finance, legislative, legal, and our debt service fund, and then our special revenue funds. The other 34% of our budget is the capital projects and the internal service funds. We provide services, the internal service funds provide services to all departments except CDE. They have their own insurances. So this is a snapshot of the enterprise fund budgets with revenues nearly $481.5 million and expenses in excess of $426.8 million. Revenues earned by the enterprise funds are required to be used to provide the services to the customers that are paying for it. There are actually laws that enterprise funds can't benefit from the general government, and general government can't benefit from the enterprise funds. We actually pay each other for services. This is a snapshot of the general fund. Our revenues are projected in excess of $169.3 million, with the majority of our revenues coming from taxes. This is not just property taxes. Total expenditures are over $170.1 million, with just over half, or $88.5 million, is for police and fire. Nearly $19.1 million is for streets, and $62.5 million is for other governmental expenditures, including parks, golf, building codes, city court, and the support departments, as well as debt service and other entity funding as well. The total budget for the general fund departments is only $145 million, with the other $25.1 million goes to transfers and other entity fundings. Speaking of the general fund departments, this year we took a look at the organizational structure and to see what made the most sense. You'll notice in the budget ordinance that municipal properties has no funding for FY26. That is because we didn't get rid of anything, we just reallocated people. So it was very confusing as to what belonged in the building facility maintenance department and what belonged in municipal properties. So instead, we split them out and we put what we believed belonged in building facility maintenance in there, and then the management of the capital projects into the street department. So that municipal properties budget has been split between two departments, building facility maintenance and streets. There was no additional cost to do this. We just moved the expenditures from one department to the next. So you may ask, how can we spend more than we collect? And is it okay? Well, yes. So remember when I talked about the fund balance and the Delicate Balancing Act? And I also talked about the part of the fund balance that can be used for one-time expenses. That's where we use part of our fund balance. We don't want to spend too much because we want to make sure we have enough in our fund balance to respond to those emergencies. And if we have too much in our fund balance, that means we're collecting too much from our citizens, and then we're just holding their money, which isn't the responsible thing to do either. So when we spend some of the fund balance, we're trying to target keeping our fund balance where it's manageable and where it should be. So we are budgeted to use $4.4 million in one-time expenses for the vehicle replacement fund, but we're only using $770,000 of fund balance. So that little bit will be paid for from the one-time expenses, but our fleet vehicle replacement fund is all one-time expenses. So we could use up to that, but we don't want to take all of that from fund balance because we need to maintain a fund balance that can respond to those emergencies. So a little more about our general fund revenues. Taxes are the largest source of our revenue for the city at $113.8 million. And again, that's not just property taxes. Current year property taxes are estimated to be nearly $66.8 million. Local option sales tax is the other major category of revenue included in taxes, and that's estimated to be $32.3 million. Other taxes include liquor by the drink, business licenses in lieu of tax payments, and this does not include CDE and gas and water's pilot payments, but it also includes franchise fees and hotel motel taxes. Intergovernmental revenues is another area that's made up mostly of state shared revenues, and this is the portion of the revenue based on our census count. These consist of a portion of state sales tax, state street aid, gas tax, TVA replacement tax, liquor excise taxes, and the like. This year, our state shared revenue is estimated to be $179.20 per person, with our population for a census, which will stay at the same number for 10 years, is 166,722. So the revenue estimated from state shared revenues is $29.9 million. This is also where we account for our federal and state grants. Charges for services is where we account for like our court costs and our street cuts and cemeteries. Parks and rec fees are in this area as well, and as the golf courses. This is also where we account for those charge outs. That's where we pay the enterprise funds for expenses that they're providing us. Then we have licenses and permits next, and that's right. It's for our building permits and licenses like peddlers permits, breeders permits, fireworks permits are all in that area. Other financial uses, this is where we get our funding from our large enterprise funds. So this is payment in lieu of taxes from CDE and gas and water, and they are our largest taxpayers because this is what they would pay if they were a private entity. This is what they would pay in property taxes, and that's what we receive from them. So we talked a lot about the general wage increase and included in the budget, and I'd like to show you a little history. I believe we've made really great strides in valuing our employees, hiring and retaining qualified applicants as well. I won't read it all to you, but as you can see, we've done a lot in the past couple of years. The market has been a tough one, and it seems like we're in a pretty good place right now. Most of our departments are either fully staffed or nearly full staffing, which is a completely different story than a year ago. Our city code defines a process for pay increases. Each year, our HR director takes a look at the market in consultation with experts in the field. She then makes recommendations to the city's CFO to see what's possible, and then jointly a recommendation is brought to the mayor for consideration in the budget. It is crucial that we stay on market to retain and hire great employees. But also, we don't want to get behind like we did in 2011 and in 2021. When pay studies cost the city between $3 and $4 million to implement. You'll notice in 2021, the HR department, in concert with public safety, police, and fire, did a pay study just for those two departments. The cost of that to the city was $4 million to implement that one study. The city's compensation plan is reviewed annually and further states in the code that it will be adjusted when necessary to ensure that the city's pay practices remain competitive with changes in the labor market and conditions. A full comprehensive pay study was implemented in 2023, for all positions of the city excluding CDE. Next is about our new hires. The general fund budget includes 30 new positions this year. These are the positions we need and realistically expect to fill. Fire has 8 new hires, 6 are EMRs, 1 new firefighter, and 1 materials manager. Police has 8 new hires, and they will all be cadets. 5 new positions for building and codes. 2 are code enforcement officers, 1 admin support, 1 grounds facility maintenance crew chief, and 1 senior equipment operator. Most of these are to help support the Restoring Clarksville initiative. In the garage, we have 1 equipment maintenance technician. And the golf courses, we have 1 for Mason Rudolph, so that we can get that back up and fully functioning. So we need an assistant golf course superintendent for that. 6 for the Parks and Rec, and these are 5 grounds facility maintenance employees and 1 athletic turf tech. 8 police officers to try and get onto their target to support the population of 2.2 officers per 1,000 citizens. Our enterprise funds includes 1 parking enforcement officer to enforce illegal parking in the evenings. There's 3 new hires in CDE and 7 in gas and water. So for the past couple of years, I've been talking about how our expenses have been outpacing our revenue growth. We have been making progress with our revenues coming more in line with our expenditures. FY25, our revenues were projected to grow at a rate of 9.8%, and our expenditures were at 5.7%. So that helped us close that gap a little bit. For FY26, we were projecting revenues at 9.4% growth, and our expenditures at 7.9%. You can see on the graph the red line is for the expenditures and the blue dotted line is for the revenues. And you can see how disconnected they were in prior years, and that's why we've been trying to make progress to bring them closer in line. We used to be able to keep very much in line, as you can see in the earlier years there, with little ups and downs, and then 2020 took hold, and everything changed, and now we're living in a different area of inflation, and these are costs that we really can't control. So we're trying to fix that with little baby steps, with controlling costs as well as working on our revenues. We've looked at other areas like we did with the hotel motel tax to look at other areas to bring revenues in and control some of that. But the main reason our revenues are projected to increase in 2026 is due to the tax rate increase. Otherwise, our revenues would have been very, very flat. I can explain more why we need the tax rate increase in a second. So without a tax rate increase, our revenues would have come in at $159.6 million, and our expenditures at $170.1 million, a total of a $10.5 million gap. A tax rate increase is always the mayor and my last resort. It is definitely not something that we've ever taken lightly, and it's always a last thought. We look at everything else first. But I've also been saying for a while now, an 88-cent tax rate is not sustainable for a community our size. It's 88 cents per $100 of assessed value. It's just, we're too large of a city to be sustainable at that level. So a lot of people say growth should pay for itself. So there's 2 issues with that concept. State law won't let us get ahead with growth. That certified tax rate process that we went through last year is one of the ways they take the growth away. So as an example, last year with the certified tax rate, if we had stayed at $1.23, then our revenues would have been from property tax would have been $77.5 million. We would have received money from the growth. But because of the certified tax rate process, our billing was only $47.2 million. Significant difference. It's almost $30 million reduction because of the certified tax rate process. So we did not receive that growth from the sales, from the growth in our values. So again, that process takes the growth away. And then The problem we also have with the certified tax rate process is they come back with one number, the state does, that's supposed to be revenue neutral. So last year came back with 74 cents and some change. And that was supposed to be revenue neutral. We have proven time and time again, when this happens, we lose money. And we lose money because of the appeals process. The way the appeals process works is that if you get an assessment change and it's more than you want, you can appeal it. And you go to the board at the assessor's office and you can appeal that. And that's great. But there's a time frame that takes place, and it extends beyond when we have to approve the certified tax rate process. So by the time the appeals come through, we get reduced revenue, because if the appeal is successful, they reduce the revenue that we're going to get from the taxpayer. So we've proven a couple of times that it's over $1 million that we lose each certified tax rate process. I've gone to the state, I've gone to the assessor to show them. The state's response was, yeah, there is a problem with this. And we have this in writing. There is a problem with the calculation. My recommendation to you is get your counsel to increase taxes every certified tax rate to account for that. And I don't believe that's fair to you all. You're elected officials, and they make you advertise it as a tax rate increase. And I don't think that's fair to happen. But besides the certified tax rate process, the other piece that I'm talking about growth paying for itself is our normal growth for our city. Typically, our property values go up about 5% a year, and that's been a trend since 2012. That would bring our city, the size of our city, $2.7 million annually. $2.7 million is not going to pay for all the growth that we have in this city. That is minuscule in comparison to what our expenses are just to provide the services that we have to provide. So they say growth is going to pay for itself. It does not. And you can use those examples when people come to you and tell you, why should you increase our taxes? So then I want to show you this. This is the history of our tax rate. And this goes back to 1995. The highlighted ones, and there seems to be possibly when we changed the certified tax rate process maybe in 1 year, but the highlighted ones are the years that there was a certified tax rate. And you can see those major dips in our tax rate. But since 1999, we have had drastic reductions from $2.01 down to 74 cents. That's how much our tax rate has changed over the years. We are the 5th largest city in the state of Tennessee, and we're so far behind on what our needs are to provide what our citizens and the services that they want. So how do we compare to some other cities? I just want to list the top 6 cities with populations that are closer to ours, or the top 5. So Chattanooga's tax rate is $2.25 per hundred. Johnson City, which is smaller than us, their tax rate is at $1.35 and 41 1/100ths. Knoxville is $2.16. Memphis is $3.20. Murfreesboro is 95.26 cents. And Nashville, due to the metro piece, is $3.25. So let's talk about the impact to our taxpayers on this tax rate increase, because I know 15 cents sounds like a lot of money. And like I said, we don't take it lightly at all. But I want to show you what the impact is. So the average homeowner, and I just took the residential appraised values that we have and divided by the number of properties we have. And that's where I came with the average. So it's not real scientific there. But it's $266,000. So at 88 cents, their taxes would be for a year, $585 a year. 15-cent increase would be just under $100 extra that they would have to pay a year. Most of us have mortgages, and we pay our property taxes through a mortgage company, so that would be about $8.31 a month. I know a lot of our home values have increased, so if we look at somebody who their house is valued at $400,000, they're currently paying $880 in property taxes, just the cities. And annually, that would increase $150, which would be about $12.50 a month if they have an escrow account. And as a reminder, this tax increase does not impact anybody who qualifies for tax relief or tax freeze. Those are state programs that keep their taxes at what they were prior to the tax increase or give them additional funds to offset the increases. They would have to qualify for the program. Some of them are based on age, based on income, or based on your veteran status. So a little more about the budget. This is a snapshot of the other governmental funds. These details are in your budget books, and you'll see them in your budget ordinances. They all have separate schedules in the ordinance. These are all multi-year funds, so you might see where expenditures are more than the revenues, and that's okay because they're trying to use revenues that they collected in the prior year. They all have restricted use of the proceeds, so they can't be used for general government expenses. A little bit about our debt. The general government debt is $158.1 million, and the total enterprise-wide is $528.8 million. We issue debt for capital projects so that those who are receiving the benefit are the ones paying for it. This is called generational equity. If we didn't issue debt, we would have to stockpile money from other citizens, and with such a transient community here, we would be stockpiling it, and then by the time we build the project, those people probably don't even live in Clarksville anymore. So this is a way to have those who are enjoying the benefit are the ones who are paying for it. And I know 158.1 million sounds like a lot, but let's look and see how we compare to the other top cities and comparing with per capita debt. So some of these cities are structured a little bit differently than us. But I tried to pull out just the general obligation bonds if I could from their audits. So Knoxville has the lowest per capita debt, which is $500 per citizen. City, we have $875 is the per capita debt. The majority of our debt impact is on the enterprise funds, and that would be $2,922. But theirs is not paid from tax dollars. Their debt is 100% paid by the revenues that they collect for the services that the citizens are paying for. So future debt. Each year, you're approving capital projects in the budget, and we typically issue debt, but we don't always issue it exactly the time frame that you're approving it. We issue it when we need the cash flow. This budget includes $30.9 million of new debt for previously authorized but unissued projects. Totals $246.7 million. This includes FY26, and that previously issued debt would bring us to $277.6 million that we could issue when we need it. We've been working with our financial advisors for a debt plan, and we plan to work with them to try and fill in the gaps that we have there and kind of level out our payments. I've always said that $12 million is an attainable and a manageable debt service payment from our general fund. Typically, that's a good target number. In 2020, when we increased the tax to pay for the 2020 tax transportation plan, we put that money into the capital projects plan to help offset the increased debt service. So with that, like this year, we're using $3 million of that. There's almost $10 million, or just over $10 million in there from tax increases. And we use $3 million of that to help offset the increased debt service costs, because in 2026, our debt service costs are maybe about $15 million, but the general fund can really only afford about $12 million. So we're using part of that for that. And we'll be able to use that for the next 3 years to help offset those little spikes in our debt service payments. With that, I thank you for your time. You already have the budget presentation, so I don't have to send it to you. And if you have any questions, I'll be happy to try and answer them, and all the department heads are here to help.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Matta. Councilman McLaughlin, you're recognized.
Thank you. I'll try to do all my financial ones but I always say that and then I think of something else. So one question is, when we how far before the end of the month will the actual FY25 spend be updated for us to see? Will it be updated again before we vote next Tuesday, or the actual numbers we're seeing now is what we're going to be rolling with?
Yeah, we probably wouldn't update them again because we wouldn't be able to close the month of June until about 10 days after June ends. So that would be July 10th, and that would be after the budget.
Because I know you spreadsheet everything. Do you have an idea if it's going to come in close to what the expected after the adjustments, the money was paid back? Do you think it's going to be pretty true to that, or over or under?
To be perfectly honest, which I always am with you guys, I think our revenues are going to come in a little less than I planned. And that's in here, but I also think that's going to be offset by reductions and what the actual spend is. I think they're going to offset one another. So I think the fund balance will end up being very similar to where we're projecting. It'll just be less revenues and less expenditures.
Okay, thank you. And then with the budget changes, one pager that you gave us, you said it totals about $607,000. And if I did my calculations correctly, the value of each cent of the tax increase is about $661,000. So would that reduce the need from 15 cents to like 14.2 cents? I'm just trying to figure that out.
Yeah, it adjusted the fund balance slightly, is where that came from. Originally, we were planning on using a little more of fund balance. And now we're using a little less fund balance. I mean, it's 6.5 dozen of the other.
Okay. Okay, that's all for now. Thank
For
you.
now.
I didn't conclude my report though, so, okay.
Councilman Zacharias, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mayor. Ms. Matta, I'm not asking for an answer to this question right now. I don't expect you to have an answer to the question. But last year, when we were talking about the hotel motel tax, there was some debate and conversation about 4% versus 2.75%. We landed on 2.75%. What I'm hearing tonight is that even at 2.75%, that is generating more income than more revenue than we expected. My question that I hope to get an answer to before Tuesday is, would that knowing what we know now about that revenue, would that cover the budget ask of all entities that were originally meant to be covered by the act?
I can actually answer that tonight. So it's coming in higher than we planned in our budget, not higher than we expected for the Act Authority. So it's bringing in about $100,000 a month. We just didn't plan as much in our budget document. But we also already know, I was actually on a call with the financial advisors and bond counsel for the Act Authority earlier today, and the 2.75% is not going to bring enough to cover the debt service to build the Performing Arts Center. We know there's going to be a deficit there, and that's going to be to cover Arts and Heritage, the Roxy, and the Performing Arts Center. It will not have enough. They're going to have to do some fundraising in order to cover the gap, and they are aware of that. The Act Authority is aware of it. There's going to be a gap, and that the executive director that they're going to attempt to hire, it's very heavy in the fundraising and the donations in order to fill that gap.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Other questions or comments? Councilman Smith, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Ms. Marta. You did a great job explaining this, breaking it down, making it plain, and that's what I like. Thank you. I've been getting calls about do not vote to increase the taxes. And as I told some of my constituents is that we're not raising the taxes. We're just trying to balance our budget and bring it back up to where it was. But we're still not there because it was 1.23
Correct.
last year.
2 years ago.
Yeah, 2 years ago. And we brought it to 88%. And I tried to tell them this is not a tax increase. And when I got my tax records to pay, I saw that it was not a tax increase. It was very low, lower than what I paid, which was great. And I know that we're going to raise this up to 103, as I said, this is not a tax increase, and I want my citizens to understand this. We're just trying to, balance the budget and try to put in more, bring the money back up for growth. And so I'm getting a call, don't vote for this, but it's not a tax increase. We're just trying to balance our budget and to make sure that we have enough money for growth and things that we need in this city. So I just wanted to make that clear. This is not a tax increase.
Thank you. Any other comment or question? All right, we're now ready for the contemporaneous part of this agenda, public comment. Our code allows for 3 persons, 5 minutes each. If you would like to address the council, please come forward. Seeing none, we're complete with our business, and we will stand adjourned. And the clock's running. Give us your name and you have 5 minutes.
Good evening. I'm Jesse Snyder. I'm president of Local 3180. Also, more importantly, I'm a Clarksville firefighter for the last 29 and a half years. I know I've talked to several of you guys, and I know there's been a lot of controversy going on that has occurred during this, and the intention was not to, the controversy was not the intention. The intention was we wanted to just bring awareness to everything. The awareness is that the starting pay for the firefighters is low, and compared to other communities around us. We were just asking to try to get some awareness for it and maybe implement a step plan that would be within their pay range that's even already existing, the 2022 pay range that we were placed in the middle of in a range. Clarksville is growing exponentially, so is CFR. We've got a lot of great things going on everywhere, and we just appreciate your consideration on a little bit of a pay raise on everything. Just compare us to other cities. We're not asking for a lot in the whole big scheme of things, and I know I would not want to do you guys' job right now because there's numbers being crunched down to the penny, but there's also families and numbers being crunched down to the penny with our guys and on their budgets. And their families are struggling. A lot of them are having to work 2 or 3 jobs. A lot of them are having to do, there are several that are on government assistance at this time. And I think that we came up with a living wage of about $15 an hour a few years ago, and there were still firefighters below $15 an hour during that pay range. So if I could ask for your consideration and just talk to us, and I haven't had a chance to talk to everyone yet. Everything blew up so fast that it got way out of hand way too quick. So if you would just listen to us when we reach out, we're screaming for help for a lot of the younger guys. A lot of the younger guys they're trying their best to do what they can do to be the best citizens and the best firefighters they can be for the city of Clarksville. They knew they weren't going to get rich being a firefighter. Everybody knows that. But they cared about their community enough to come to work here, and they really want some consideration back when it comes to compensating them. It's a great job, and it's a great department, and a great city, and we all want to live and serve in the community the best of our ability. Retention and recruitment if it hasn't already started being an issue, it's going to be, because the other departments around us are offering more. And I know we can't compare apples to apples because everybody's got a little sprinkle on their ice cream. It's a little different from ours. But we want to just be considered and listen to us and talk to us. And we're going to be respectful. The whole social media thing goes the way social media goes. And it was not an intent of anybody within our division or within our organization for that to happen. That's third party stuff. So at this time, I'd just like to say thank you guys for what you do and just take into consideration for us a little bit. The younger guys are the ones we're worried about. The guys that are struggling. And it is a thing. I have a young man at my station that we take care of on a shift basis just because he needs it. So That's all I have for right now. Thank you for your attention and thank you for your time. And I appreciate the conversations we've had. And I look forward to having conversations with others on the council and you, Mr. Mayor. And just take into consideration what we got and what you have here, because you have a great bunch of firefighters, and I don't want to lose them, and I don't want those guys to be struggling either. So just thank you very much for your time. Appreciate it.
Is there anyone else that wishes to address the council? Give us your name and you have 5 minutes.
I'm Owen James, and I was kind of forced up here. Good evening, Mayor Pitts, council members, and everyone else in attendance. I come tonight humbly before you to share some data and statistics that need to be brought to light pertaining to the Clarksville Fire Rescue. Before we get to the data, I'd like for it to be known that this is all just merely data I found on the internet, and I'm here to advocate for men and women that I work with, live with, and spend a third of my life with. The men and women of Clarksville Fire Rescue are unequivocally the most servant-hearted individuals I've ever met in my life. You'd be hard-pressed to find a better group of firefighters in the state that exemplify the professionalism and character that these individuals share. As we all know, in Clarksville, the starting salary is $43,811, which is $15.89 an hour, just marginally above the city's lowest salary of $15.63 an hour. A certified firefighter makes $45,000. We have 12 stations, respond to 20,000 calls, and we boast a population of 189,520 people. Go on across the street to Dixon, you start at 54,122, and you top out at 63,000 in 5 years. They have 3 fire stations with 16,000 people. That's a 23.44% difference. Go to Murfreesboro, 56,883 for uncertified. Certified is 58,305. The top out range for a fireman is 78,414. They have 165,000 people, 11 stations. The difference in starting salary is 29.8%. Certified is 25.76%. Go to Franklin, we all know that, 55,000 uncertified, 60,000 certified, 8 fire stations, 88,000 people. Firefighter tops out at 75,805, and this data is also from 2022, so 4 fiscal years ago. Those differences are 22.65% for uncertified, 28.57% for certified. Go to Goodlettsville, 56,000 uncertified. Their top out's 82,409. They have 1 fire station and 17,429 people. That is a 25% difference in starting salary, and if we do our top out to theirs, which ours is 62,716, that's a 27.15% difference. Brentwood is 53,603 for uncertified firemen, 58,235 for certified. They have 5 fire stations covering 45,265 people. Different in percentage is 22.21%, and for certified is 25.64%. Their top out's 84,457, which is 29.54% more than ours. They also follow a step pay plan, as all these others do. Hendersonville's been on the news lately. They've gone before their council and asked for a raise, and they're set to receive a 10% raise along with $4,500 given to each employee as like a base jump. My mother-in-law is a county commissioner up there. She just recently got out of it. She's very close with the public safety and the chief, so all these numbers are correct as well. So they'll go up to about 55,000 starting, uncertified 60,000 for a certified firefighter to start. This is just a small section of data, and I hope hopefully it portrays how far behind our department is. I'd be more than willing to assist or help or provide more if needed. And to remain competitive with the job market, I feel like it's essential. It's not centered around our employees receiving fair compensation for their workload, training, or performance. Paying firefighters more money will attract higher quality individuals to protect the citizens of Clarksville. CFR will be able to overcome its employee retention issues. We have struggled recently in previous years because employees are not being able to afford to continue to work at CFR. So thank you for your time. Like I said, I'm more than happy to share any other data and provide anything else. Thank you all very much.
Our code allows for one more person to address the council. Anyone else? No. Clock's running. Give us your name and you have 5 minutes.
I'm Josh Gillette. I didn't come here to fight. I didn't come here to argue or debate. Where I come from, people stand up. They don't hide behind silence. But I'm damn sure not going to watch good men and women get buried in silence. I've learned silence doesn't always mean peace. Sometimes it means something's wrong. And it seems like the ones in charge are wrong. When firefighters speak up and they're ignored, when public officials get questioned and they hide, and when our community heroes get left behind, it's either you speak up or become part of the problem. I'm Josh. I've served 20 years in Special Forces. I've carried brothers off the battlefields. I've been carried off battlefields from being torn apart by IEDs. I know what it looks like when the brave are forgotten. And I see that kind of courage, not in you guys, but in the firefighters back there. We wear different uniforms, but we fought the same fight, protecting people who can't protect themselves. And while they're out saving lives, some leaders stay quiet, not out of respect, but out of comfort. They'll push statues, make backdoor deals with criminals, approve strip malls and protect their image, but they won't protect the ones who protect this city. Meanwhile, firefighters are working 2 or more jobs just to buy groceries in this town, just to live in the very neighborhoods they serve. Other towns pay more around here for the same type of risk. And if frontline heroes aren't getting support, you better start following the money. It's not a tax problem. It's a planning problem. The people and the planning are broke. And it's not just the road planning that's a problem, it's paying these firefighters. If you ask me what really matters in this town, it ain't statues. It ain't trying to buy a raceway for $7 million. It ain't restored buildings. Sure as hell ain't strip malls, car washes, and rentals before fixing our road system. It's them. It's the firefighters. It's the community members who say, I'll go first. They're the backbone. Whether it's a battlefield or a burning house, it takes some kind of courage. And protecting them, that's how we should be surviving as a city, as a people, as a place, by God, worth calling home. I don't hear any of you guys trying to fight for their pay or even explaining why the financial budget won't even explain it. I just hear silence. Because if you invested in those who serve, you're just not protecting lives, you're protecting the soul of the community. If you wouldn't trade places with one of them running into a fire, you better take care of them when they come out. Don't say you support the troops, the fallen. You don't even support the ones suiting up right here at home. They say promote and support local. Is that what you guys say? Well, go first, City Hall. Prove it to your local community heroes. And I'll leave you with this. They say public officials, the deeper their roots in a city, the more rotten their core is. The people are watching now. They'll see who's protecting the people and who's just protecting themselves and staying silent.
That completes our business. We're adjourned. See you next week.